Hi guys, welcome back to the Funky Evolution Party. I'm Alice Green. I realized I haven't introduced myself very often, but that's because it doesn't really matter. I'm just a fellow citizen of this world who has not been watching the media, but actually doing her own research and coming to some pretty simple, and I'm saying very toddler TV simple, ways that we can start to really retrain our brains and get ourselves onto the right track. So, as mentioned in the past, if we used our creative skills rather than battling each other and actually used them to progress, then this world would be a completely different place. And again, when you go to work, you don't always like the people in your workplace, but you work in order to produce whatever it is that you're doing. So it's very important that I'm feeding you guys small hors d'oeuvres for you to digest one at a time in order to get you in the right mode so we can really start to tackle these issues. In my last episode, I spoke about sex and pleasure seeking and how we really need to start educating ourselves on sex and sexuality a little bit more, bringing it into the school systems, because in this episode I'm going to squeeze two very, very major and important things together because, like a jumper, when you're knitting, it's the fabrics and it's how you put it together. And there's holes and if you miss a piece and all of that, and this is how I want you guys to be looking at this party. Is it's going to be fun, it's going to be scary, but we have the power to start breaking down thousands and thousands of years of what I like to call traffic. Now, just quickly before I jump into the trafficking side, I'm going to speak about abortion. Now, controversial topics, they're not controversial, they've been brushed under the table, and all that's happening is we are regressing as a society, and the rights that women fought for contraception, for abortion, all of that are slowly being taken away. For what? And that comes into the next side of things, because it's very grand and dandy that we're running around and having all these babies, and girls at 16 are in the bushes and having baby at 16 and can't even handle themselves, let alone a child. And then that child is really messed up because it hasn't been raised correctly, and it's a vicious cycle that is continuing. And it's up to each and every single individual to decide, i.e., don't willingly nillingly just sleep around and get pregnant and go, I'll just get an abortion tomorrow. No, it's not how it works, because there are respect for life and all of that sort of thing. But if you respect life, then why are we allowing so much of these children to end up in slavery, not just in factories making our clothes, but in the sex trade that is really starting to come to light in the media. And it's been for the last couple of years, all the powers at the top, and including the Queen herself. I'm sorry, but go to Australia. Up until the 70s, they were still snatching children from their families. And that was to try and, oh, we're going to put them into, the I don't believe they were all integrated into white societies. I grew up in Australia, and I'm going to say, sorry guys, all of you out there, but it was not easy growing up in that country. And there was no integration. There was lots of segregation, and that's not just Australia, that's in America, that's in a lot of countries all over the world. And it wasn't up until 81 that I think the final slavery law was abolished. So a lot of women who had been abused ended up having children that then got snatched from them. Now, This is a topic that I think we really need to address, because you don't want people going back with coat hangers. We don't want to see a regression in society, but equally we need to understand that we can't keep having children and then not knowing what to do with them, or then they get snatched and sold on. Yeah, I'm going to give them a job, they're going to go to a better country. It's not how it works, and it's happened in Asia, it's happened in South Americas. If you look globally, they have exploited these countries, then assaulted, abused, and had children with, only to then think about that one. Now, that's on the grand scale of things. And also when we're going into the individual modern day woman who, I'm just going to jump on Tinder and let's see what happens, and yeah, you might end up with twins. Who knows? At the end of the day, if you're not ready, you're not ready. And I get these people, it's got a heartbeat and this, that, and the other. But what happens when you bring a child into the world and you're not capable of looking after it, and then you mess it up badly, and the cycle viciously continues? So it's okay for a couple to have a child and they're really, 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 really messed up, but it's not okay for two women or two men to adopt a child when they're in a completely loving and open and honest relationship and they can afford and support that child. No, we're just going to leave it with really messed up people. Yeah? And then that child gets messed up, hits 14, ends up on the streets, and then what happens to them? They get taken in, they get used, they get abused, they get sold on. So it's not just isolated issues. This happens on almost every doorstep globally because of the way, for thousands and thousands and thousands of years, slavery only got changed to the word trafficking as of 1981. So you're looking at 39 years of an illegal trade that was once legal. And you can't say that nobody has suffered from this, because every single person on this earth is currently being exploited, whether it be from a corporation, whether it be from a government. We're selling ourselves in some way, shape, or another, and they've used sex and sexuality to keep us divided. And on top of keeping us divided, we are then, now, if you were to, okay, imagine you're in a really, like, Asia, and I've traveled a lot and I've seen a lot, and your partner's died and there's no way for you to generate an income, and someone comes along and says, oh, I'll give you this much money for your child. People are forced into giving up their children. Now, we have to be very, very serious about how we're going to tackle this issue. It's all coming out in the media. So now is the perfect time to tackle this. Number one, why are we having children and making laws? Because who is going to look after these children that women don't want to carry, and all those emotions that go into that child as you're producing it? They get all of that, and then it gets given to other people who you don't know what's happening to that child, or to that woman that lost her husband, or to the women in Africa. If you guys really, like, what was amazing about the Black Lives Matters was that it really brought the world together, and it showed the slave trade in its light, but it didn't go deep enough in terms of it really hitting the extent of slavery and how it's still an issue today. It's a massive issue, and child trafficking is getting worse and worse and worse and worse. It doesn't have to be like this, guys. If we understood who we were, individually and then globally. We would take back our own individual power, the masculine and the feminine within. You would then be able to have healthier relationships with other people because you could learn, agree to disagree. I still need to carry on with my task. Let's shut up and dance. Let's shut up and eat. Let's shut up and laugh. Let's shut up and make a jumper, because that's what we sometimes have to do. But sometimes we also need to have that voice and say, this is not acceptable. It's 2020. Guys, 2020. This is not thousands of years ago. We now have the power globally to band together and say, hold up, what is happening to our children? They are the future. And we need to understand that every time we turn a blind eye, another child is being just and then killed. For who? For what? For whose pleasure? It's disgusting. Pleasure seeking is fine, but that's not a way to seek pleasure. And it's because we keep making these things acceptable. Listen, you want to wear a short skirt? Fine, as long as you understand why you're wearing it. It's not to get attention from someone else, it's because you like your ass. Fine. But the way we're going, trafficking, and saying all these doesn't matter and that, we have the power to change things, and it's up to us to band together as the alien nation and say, hold up, this is not okay anymore. Abortion should be allowed because it's individuals' choices. Same-sex marriages and having children together, i.e. adopting, what not? Seriously, think about it. Being raised in a loving environment versus one that's just like, how are the children going to end up? And then sold on. Think about it. I'm going to leave you guys with that for today. So please like, share, and get the message out there. Cheers.